Before we start tonight, I'd like to make sure that everyone has signed in for the meeting. The back entrance to the room. If you have not, please do so. It must be on the record. I'm Bob Tanner. The other board members are Scott Calhoun and John DePlacido. I'd like to introduce Matthew Puz, Zoning and Development Officer, Julie Maggio, Assistant Zoning and Development Officer, Jeremy Toman, Board Solicitor, Cecilia Mahana, Court Reporter. After the presentation by the appellant, the board will hear from those in question of the appeal, those in favor and those opposed. Please make sure if you are going to speak, it comes to the podium and we can clearly hear your name and address. Any documents or evidence that is presented must be kept for a period of 60 days for our records. And after all presentations are made, the board will recess. We will then reconvene and make our decisions. The board has up to 45 days to render a decision, but they're usually made this evening. If you do not care to wait for the decision, you may call the zoning office in the morning after 8:30. I would now ask that everyone please stand to be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please answer, I do. Thank you. Okay, first appeal for tonight is appeal number 22-6, Martha Nagel for property located at 3843 Lakefront Drive, asking for a density variance to construct an additional cottage in the MO Mixed Occupancy District.
Good evening. My name is David Rhodes. I'm representing the property owner Martha Nagel in this appeal. The subject property, as indicated, is at 3843 Lakefront Drive. Is that me? Sorry. And what we're seeking is a variance from the application of section 145-18A1 of the township's zoning ordinance related to the maximum allowable density in the mixed occupancy district. So the ordinance would permit a total of 8 dwelling units per developable acre in this district. Ms. Nagel is seeking to construct an approximately 1,300 square foot cottage on the western portion of the property. There currently exists another dwelling unit as well as a garage and shed on the property. The cottage that's being proposed itself would be a permissible structure within the zoning district. The issue is with the density and the developable land that's available. So under the ordinance, developable land consists of the land that's proposed for development, with the exception of or excluding from that land that is lying within the 100-year floodplain, and also land having a slope in excess of 25%. So the issue in this appeal is that when we take into account the flood zone and the slope, because of the topography of the lot, there is actually no developable area on the parcel. So that's kind of the nature of the appeal. We have John Laird from David Laird Associates that has a map here. And I think we submitted, do you have a map in your packet, a sketch plan?
Yes.
Okay. And so John here is going to touch on what you're looking at in that plan, and then he has a subsequent map for you to take a look at.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good evening. Again, John Laird from David Laird Associates. The map you see before you shows the existing, excuse me, the existing dwelling. It's labeled as 1FD and shows the porch off the north side. And there's also a garage to the southeast of the existing dwelling. The proposed cottage, as you can see, is highlighted in a brown color to the northwest of the existing dwelling. As you can see on this map, there is a dashed line that indicates the flood zone AE limits. And south of that line, you can see the contours of the property and see the steep slope that it backs into. So a few years ago, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, FEMA changed the flood elevation and raised the flood zone along Lake Erie, which created this situation in this case. I did do some research and pulled the flood mapping, the previous flood mapping, and I prepared a map just showing you the difference of what the developable area would have been under the previous flood zone AE. So if I could submit that as for the record.
Thank you.
So the area that's outlined or highlighted in the pinkish color on that drawing is the area that would have been the developable area prior to the change in the flood zone designation elevation. So under that scenario, it was I believe 0.67 acres of developable area, which would permit Ms. Nagel to do what she would like to do here with the property, with the construction of this cottage. So if you have any questions on either of those maps, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Where was the dotted line, oh, I'm sorry. Where was the dotted line that you said was the new floodplain map? No, this is the
That's
old
the old
one.
one. The new
Yeah.
one is this line here. So you can see
Where
it
do
goes
we-
behind the back of the garage.
Where do we have this map in our packet? Was that not in our packet?
Should be.
Oh, here it is. So it was the first one. So this is now
That's
the
the new
flood.
one, and then these are
Yeah.
contour lines showing the 25%
Right, I understand,
slope.
right. So everything else is in the flood zone? All the other houses?
Correct.
Okay, right, and so, I think you have to stand back at the microphone, I'm sorry, just so they can record you. When was that floodplain map changed?
I want to say approximately 5 years ago.
Due to obviously increase in water levels? As
I've had some conversations with people who work at FEMA, and they say, I can't remember the name of the hurricane that came up the East Coast that caused massive damage. And they said basically FEMA was trying to expand those zones to incorporate as many people as possible to pay into their flood insurance fund. So that's one of the reasons that they raised it.
But there has been a lot of damage.
Yes, oh, I
Over
agree.
the last, even 2 years, on properties that are not on the cliffs, but that are directly on the waterfront. There has been damage and even walls
Absolutely,
built, yeah.
absolutely.
So there is some reasoning behind, I
Yes,
imagine.
although the flood zone was raised prior to that.
Now, John, I don't know if this is a question for you or which one of you, but the two existing structures are to be demolished? Or, no?
No, those structures will remain.
Okay.
And again, the number of structures would be permissible, that's not necessarily the issue. It's that there's no structures could be constructed when we apply the ordinance to the current flood map with the slope, south part of the property.
Oh, and we're looking at.
So, Matthew Puzz,
Yes.
we're saying that there would be 8 dwelling units per developable acre. So would you agree, have you seen this?
No, I have not seen
Showing
that
where
one.
the old floodplain was? This shows that at a time of approximately 5 years ago, there was 0.67 acres. So, would you agree at that time, 0.67 times 8, 5.36, so 5 dwelling units? Am I doing that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You call the proposed structure a cottage as opposed to a dwelling unit? What do you call a cottage? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if there's a distinction, Mr. Placido, there. I know that cottage is specifically referenced as one of the permissible uses in the mixed occupancy district, but I believe that it would be considered a dwelling unit as well. I don't think there's a distinction as far as that goes.
Okay.
And the ancillary buildings are not considered dwelling units. I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, I'm sorry. The storage shed wouldn't be considered a dwelling unit per definition.
Correct. The shed would be considered a detached accessory
Right.
structure.
Right, so that would not fit into the calculation of the 8 dwelling units per, is it acre?
Developable acre, correct.
Developable acre.
Okay.
Was, sorry, was there any elevation survey performed or challenge of the FEMA flood map?
No. FEMA has an online system you can go on and basically overlay onto our information from our boundary,
Right,
the location of the FEMA flood zone. So that is where the FEMA flood zone was taken from.
Right.
So, I mean, it's close, it's not perfect.
right.
And the topography was taken from a topography survey that we actually performed on site a few years ago.
Okay.
Where is that roadway? Where's that private roadway on this? I assume it's a private roadway.
Yeah, there's a private road that is accessed, the access to this property comes off of the foot of Powell Avenue along the west side. There's a drive that runs behind it. It is actually, the driveway is not shown on this. We did not locate that as part of this. But the driveway is towards the south end of the
Does
property
it,
there.
does it stop at this property? That driveway?
I believe that is the last property, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt questions, but I did want to point out the construction plans that Ms. Nagel has, if the variance is granted, is to put this proposed cottage to make it elevated. So we'll actually be at a higher elevation as far as water levels go to the existing structure there. So she has a residence in South Carolina and has indicated that she's used to kind of having these elevated structures to address things like that. So this proposed structure would actually sit at a higher elevation than the other structures that are in that area.
Well, the south end would be the entrance, so it would be where you get in and out, right? It's on an angle.
Yeah, it's generally, you know, you have the bluff and then it's relatively level, you know, at the bottom of the bluff to the water, but I guess one other item, I did have some discussion with Ms. Nagel and some other interested owners in the area. There is a desire on her part, or a willingness at least, that if the variance is granted, that she would accept a condition be imposed upon the granting of the variance that the property not be used for any sort of retail or commercial purposes. But that's something I indicated I would relay, and she would certainly be willing to accept that it would only be used for residential related purposes and not for, because I think under mixed occupancy, there's at least the potential for some expanded type of use, and that's not anything that she's seeking.
So the property is overlooking a bluff. I can see the elevation lines here, but there is a bluff that this cottage would sit on? Or what is from, like, I don't know, I'm not as familiar with this area.
So
What's
if you look at the map, the bottom of the main lake bluff is basically at the zone AE line, the dashed burgundy or pink line there on your drawing,
Yeah,
behind the house, the dwelling itself. And then the gray lines that, as you head north, are 1 foot of elevation change as you head towards the lake.
okay.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5, 6 before you get to the actual lake itself,
So
at least at the time of the survey.
6 feet of
Correct.
elevation, so it's not too much, it's pretty much on the
It's
water.
a relatively straight grade, yes, down to.
Do we know if other houses in that area have had damage due to flooding?
I don't know I know people have had water
Oh,
around their houses.
Okay.
I'm sure some of the people here can speak to that.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Okay, just, but you can't speak to that?
No.
Okay, oh, thank you.
Is the finished floor level being built at a height above the flood zone?
Yeah, it would have to be permitted through FEMA to be able to construct
Yeah.
within the flood zone, yes.
That's not quite right.
Okay, I want to ask a few other questions, if there's anyone in the audience like to speak on this? One at a time, come to the podium, state your name, excuse me, name and address before you speak, please.
I'm George Miller. I live 408 Powell Avenue. I live up on the bank, Powell Avenue up over the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm unclear. Is FEMA repealing these regulations that he's on? Are they under repeal? Why are we talking about the old regulations? That's why I'm confused. Why is he saying under the old regulations or whatever that they're permitted and under the new they're not? Am I missing something?
I believe it creates a hardship on part of Mrs. Nagel as to why she's requesting a variance.
Yes. My question is, why, I know that's the case, but, so she's saying, under the old regulations, she could have. But are they repealing them, or that's why she's coming to
I think the point that's being made is that 5 years ago, this could have been built.
Right. And 5 years ago, those regulations were in place. They're not in place anymore, if I
Correct.
understand.
Right, and that's
Right.
why we're here for the
Okay,
variance.
it's not because they're repealing this
No.
thing, okay. I just wanted to clarify. The other thing I want to bring up is, we get the traffic on Powell Avenue from these cottages, and I just am sort of objecting to more traffic coming up and down that road. And not only that, if there is construction down there, what happens is these flatbed trucks go down there. They don't go down there to do the construction. They park in front of my house at times. They'll unload their bulldozer and they'll go down to wherever they're working down there and spend all day. And then they'll come up after and go get back on the flatbed and go away. Meanwhile, this vehicle, it's a big vehicle, it's been parked there all day, kind of creating a road hazard. And again, that's a concern in the additional traffic. Those are and are they digging into the bank, or is this done without removing any of the bank there?
We can't answer those questions.
Okay. Well, I think that should be a question, because I think people ought to be concerned about that. I don't know if you're aware of some of the erosions that's occurred where people have removed the bank, and once
Sure,
that
so
starts.
the point of tonight is just to establish whether it fits, if we want to establish a variance because of the special characteristics of this project. They have to follow all applicable parking regulations, building regulations. There's still a process they have to go through the engineering department here within the township to get approval. They have to comply with FEMA and everything else. So those are things that would have to happen regardless of if they were here for this tonight or not. If they don't follow those regulations, not this board nor anyone else except for the township officers can regulate that.
All right. Okay, I just
Okay.
wanted to voice my concerns.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marlene Moscow, and along with my husband, we own the property at 3825 Lakefront Drive. Thanks for
Can
the
I-
opportunity.
Excuse me, if I could just ask, where is that in relation?
We're right smack dab in the middle. I don't know that map, but
Well, hold on, just so I have a bearing point.
there are 5 on the lake, and we're right in the center,
1,
3825.
2, 38, 19, 38,
Yeah, it looks like
27,
there's 3827, so it's just,
38, 27?
We're
it's
30
just, they're 25, so
Yeah.
they're right next door.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my neighbors in opposition to the variance proposed by the Martha Nagel Trust. We're a quiet family community of 5 single-family residences. We reside on a private road that we maintain at no cost to the township. Currently, there are 2 structures on the Nagel plot. The original cottage that's been unoccupied and boarded up for probably a minimum of 30 years. The Nagel family recently built an apartment residence over the garage that they have used and that they have occupied and also used as a rental. So now they want to turn the boarded up dwelling into a Airbnb, a rental property, and extend the road and construct a 3rd residence on this site. There are multiple family generations occupying our homes. Vacationers on their way to a party will have no respect for our families and our young children as they speed by. 3 dwellings on this one parcel. Now tonight, I understand it could be up to 8. They could get approval for 8. Didn't someone say that? 5. 5, okay. so-
They're currently asking for approval for one structure.
One, right, okay. We have young children, we have grandchildren, and these dwellings are on one parcel in a single-family neighborhood. I don't feel it's a very good idea, and I think it would be very precedent-setting if this variance were approved. Someone asked the question about damage to the properties with the weather conditions. Oh, we have all spent considerable amount of money trying to figure out ways to minimize damages on our properties, clean up. You know, we have all been through all of that. And it's, the water table's high down there. It hasn't gone down at all. According to what I've read, it doesn't seem to be going down anytime soon. So there's a lot of damage that happens in like right now, April, May, and then really like from October through the end of November. Those are the worst times for damage down there. The winds off the west and the lake are very, very damaging to all of our properties down there. Just worry that you keep building things, what's it going to do? Is it going to help us or hurt us? I have a feeling it's going to hurt us. You have any questions for me?
I do not.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak?
Richard Vendetti. I'm also a property owner down there. The first cottage, we always call it a cottage because it's always been a cottage. So you have, at the foot of Powell Avenue, private drive to the west, which is the drive we're talking about, a public drive to the east. There are 6 cottages on the west, and it's the Vendetti Cottage, Robertson, Moscow, Darlene Lay, Fessler, and then the Nagel Cottage. And does everyone have this site plan drawn by John Laird? Is it the same one that everyone has?
Yes.
Same one? I'd like to ask Mr. Poos a question. Why was this initially denied?
It was denied because there's currently, under the ordinance, no developable acreage.
Was it the 100-year floodplain designation?
It was the combination of the floodplain as well as the steep slope.
Okay. We have a couple of issues here, and the first was the floodplain, and to my knowledge, and I'm not familiar with the floodplain, but I understand there's a prohibition in building in the floodplain, and this variance would allow that. I think that's a problem. I'll get to that in a minute. We also have second issue of the Federal Bluff Retention Act. And when we built our structure maybe 20 years ago, and they looked over the plans and Mill Creek approved them, the Corps of Engineers came down to see how close we were to the water's edge. And then there's a break wall there, for those of you who are familiar. And the break wall was built in 1937. And my uncle bought that cottage in 1946. And when we were building it, it was either the coastal management or it was DEP. Didn't care about the front, the lakefront on the north side. They cared about the back. And they say, what are you going to do with the bluff? And I said, well, we're not doing anything with it. There's a road there. They said, well, you can build your cottage as long as you don't touch the bluff. And I don't think under the Bluff Retention Act, nobody can touch the bluff or do any...
They're going to have to go through the same set of circumstances with that, so.
Pardon?
I'd like to keep it more focused on your issues with what they have, as far as them having to go through different municipality regulations and coastal zone and all that. They're going to have to go through that regardless
will.
of... Oh, yes, absolutely. Everything they have to do, Mr. Laird stated that in a little bit. We can certainly ask him for additional information. He's the expert, but...
Can I ask a few more questions on that?
Oh, absolutely. Just want to let you know that if they're related to those sort of things, they have to go through all those procedures.
Well, that's going to be a problem. Can I have John come up here? John, you have the survey in front of you? Okay, could you please tell me how much distance is between the existing, I'll call it the garage with the apartment on top? What's the distance between the northwest corner of that garage and the main neighboring structure?
Well, I don't have an actual dimension shown on the plan, but I'm gonna say it's approximately 20, 25 feet.
Okay. Now, tell me what the access is gonna be to the proposed structure. How is that gonna be accessed by a vehicle? How are you gonna do that?
I'm not sure what Mrs. Nagel's plans are at the current time for access. I'm not sure if they're going to park at the east end of the property and walk over, or if they're planning to.
Pardon? Well, I'd like to know how you're gonna get to how your vehicles are gonna get to the actual cottage that you're building.
You're gonna have to come up and then one person at a time, step away from the mic, identify only one person. Please make sure everyone finishes their statement before interrupting so that we can properly document. Please step up.
Hi there, Martha Nagel, the homeowner.
Your address?
895 White Point Boulevard, Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you.
The garage, is that the garage?
That's the proposed structure.
Oh,
How
okay,
many
so
would-
here's the garage,
Mhm.
and the driveway ends there. We're gonna park around there, and this was a driveway back here, back in the day. Come around here, and then put parking right here between the two structures.
And
So the only people that would park here, there'll be two cars here, and then everybody here, and everybody here, meaning me, will be parking back here.
And when you wanna exit, is there gonna be a turnaround area over there?
There'll be plenty of places for people to turn around, and my property, everything, the drive ends right at my property. So then, there's plenty of room to go in front of the garage, behind the house, and then I'm gonna make all of this parking back here, and then leave the grass along the front.
Are you going to be encroaching upon this bluff, do you know?
No,
Okay. All right.
right, this is very flat right in here, and it used to be all driveway, now it's just all overgrown, there's like old trailers and things in there, but, you know, there's not gonna be a lot of cars here. And I've never rented my studio apartment. I've not rented ever. And the other thing I have to say is, this will only be open from June 1st to September 30th. And as I did when we redid the garage, I redid the entire road and filled and re-gravelled the whole thing. And I understand the concern about that, and I would definitely regrade, and redo the road.
Okay.
So-
Let's let Mr. Vendetti talk for a moment, and then we can come back to you. Thanks.
That's fine, thank you. And by the way, my address down there is 3803 Lakefront. And you're right, the permitting process will take care of those, whether it's Bluff Retention Act or whatever, if there's any violation of that, that'll be addressed. And lastly, I grew up down there, it was a one lane coming down, and you had to honk the horn to go down. If you're down, you had to honk the horn to go up. So it's a nice enclave, and we have these 6 structures. It's been that way for 70, 75 years after the war. And the last issue is parking, and George Miller attempted to address it, but we have the most parking because we can get about 10 cars in there. And it's also against the bluff, and we have a circular driveway, if you're familiar. And the driveway that goes down is maybe 200 yards. We have 115 front foot. Mrs. Nagel has 260. She has the largest tract of land down there. But everybody in between, as Ms. Moscow stated, has about 4 to 5 spaces. 4, easy. If you know how to park, you can maybe get 5 in there. But that's it. And then you just go south off the road, you hit the bluff. And when you go all the way down there, we have 9 members of our Vendetti partnership. There's 9 members of our partnership, that's a lot of cars. Don Fessler has 9 kids and a bazillion grandkids. And it's really, everybody down there is nice neighbors. We all get along. We all fit well. And we make do in the parking. You have 3 holidays from Memorial Day to July 4th to Labor Day. And everybody has parties. And everybody has cars. And everybody parks on the hill. As George was saying, it goes all the way up to the hill till you hit the crest where the chip reel cottage used to be. Now, you add another structure. When you hit the end, when you hit the very end, it's Fessler and then the Nagel cottage. She probably has 2 spaces right now, maybe 3. But if you're going to put another structure on there, it's going to be 2 in the apartment above the garage, husband and wife, 2 in the main cottage, and 2 in the proposed structure. You talk about 6 cars down there, it's going to be a problem. I just don't think it's a fit. I think you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's just going to be a problem. As I say, we all get along, and we manage with parking, but to add another structure is going to be difficult. I could just give her some words of advice from looking at this, and then I'll be done. This proposed is right, we have a break wall. This break wall is big, and it's, as I say, 1937. And she's about 10 feet from that. And when January and February hit and December, and there's no ice cover on the lake, there's no ice cap, those waves, they are, our cottage is on a cement deck that's 4 feet high on top of the break wall, and we get logs and sand. She's going to build right there, she's going to have a problem if there's no ice cap, because those 10, 12-foot waves, they damage everything, and we have damage on our barbecue now. That's all. Any questions you have of me?
I do not. Anyone else? No.
Is she going to speak?
Well, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, Mrs. Nagel?
Would you be willing to, I know you weren't, you had a representation, but are you willing to take some questions?
Yes.
Okay. Clearly, you know, we're trying to find out if you have a hardship here. This is in terms of what our due diligence is if, do you have a hardship, and can we grant you the use variance? My first question is, you're going to have an apartment above the garage.
It's just 1 room.
Okay, but there's a dwelling above the garage. There's the existing cottage, which is the only photo that we have here.
And that has been vacant for 35 to 40 years.
So you're not planning on using this cottage?
I am planning on using it.
For your own?
I'm planning on using it for my own purposes, and I'm planning on renting it to help with the cost of having 2 acres down on the lake.
Okay, and then you have a third proposed structure.
It's a tiny house, a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom.
It's still a dwelling.
Right.
It's still considered a dwelling. So a third proposed structure, that, what will that be used for? Your personal, again, personal,
Yes.
and renting out that as well?
I would use the main old cottage for personal use and rent, and this would be my personal, because I'm gonna be on site. I'm not going to have, you know, renters and without me being on site. I'm gonna be very particular about who I rent to, and I'm gonna have particular amount of cars that they're allowed to bring down there, and I'm gonna have spaces for each car.
And have you ever considered renovating the existing structure? Because that already is grandfathered in, and you don't.
We are renovating it right now.
So renovating it and possibly adding on to that structure instead of rebuilding a new structure that's in what's now a floodplain.
I don't want to add on to the existing cottage because I think it would ruin the look of it. It's very old. It was built in the late 1800s. It has the big wraparound porch. You know, it's a classic old cottage, and I'm just fixing it up and redoing the plumbing and the electrical.
And how many bedrooms does that cottage have?
1, 2, 2 right now. Upstairs is completely, I'm gonna put 3 bedrooms upstairs and 2 bedrooms downstairs.
So that's 5 bedrooms.
Yeah.
So it's pretty large.
Well, it's a pretty
Large.
large cottage.
Yeah, so it's a substantial cottage, and it needs renovation, but it certainly could be renovated if, you know, and then used.
It is being
Yeah,
renovated.
yeah, okay.
And I don't
and-
wanna change the footprint of the cottage.
Okay, and, why do you wanna, build this this proposed structure? Why?
Because I wanna have a place where I can be and my friends can come, because I can't have people over in that garage apartment above.
So, and you're gonna rent out the existing cottage and live in the,
Well, I'm gonna rent out the existing cottage part of the time, but some of the time I'm probably gonna use it for my friends as well. And I'm gonna, you know, have friends over.
okay.
A friend of mine wants to get married there, you know?
And one last question. Does it concern you that you're in a FEMA, you know, floodplain zone? Does that concern you at all? I mean,
It doesn't concern me at all because
do you know this area? Are you from this area originally?
Yeah, I grew
Okay.
up there.
Okay, I'm
This
just asking.
cottage has been in my family since the 1900s, I think 1900.
Okay,
I grew up at this cottage. And I have the largest property down there, and I also have the highest property down there. And so I think I'm higher, and I have the biggest beach area down there, so I have a lot of beach between the wall, the sand, and the water. A lot of these people are like right on the water, like literally right on it. And I want to build it up on pilings and put drain tile underneath it and rocks underneath it so that it's got good drainage. And it'll be, you know, it'll be a lot higher than the other 2 structures on the property, but it won't be obnoxiously high, just higher to protect it. And it won't be right up on the lake either. It won't be right on the water. It'll be, I don't know how far from the water, but it would be pretty
10
far
feet.
from the
I think
water.
you said 10 feet.
No, it's way more.
Well,
than
it's
10
okay,
feet.
it's okay.
It's probably
Oh, I see it here.
50 years.
It's 40, 50, 60, it's about 60 feet, looks like, yeah, from your map. Okay, thank you. No further questions. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I don't have anything, no.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Matthew Puzz. If I'm understanding everything that's been stated correctly tonight, would it be fair to say that all of the existing cottages, if they came in right now, would not be granted because they're in the floodplain?
I would have to look at each one individually, but I would assume that with the floodplain and the steep slope behind, they would probably not meet the density requirement for a single family.
Okay, just curious.
I'm sorry, we couldn't understand.
If anyone else came in for a permit for, let's say you had a vacant lot and somebody came in now, you would not meet the developable acreage, developable land, and would have to come in for a variance. You're welcome.
Does anyone else have anything? Matt Waldinger, does the township have a position on this?
Does not.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Appeal number 22-7, Jenny Bizarro for property located at 2811 Zook Road, asking for a dimensional variance for a side yard setback to enclose an existing deck in the R1 single-family residential district.
If you could
Jenny
just,
Bizarro, 28 2811 Zuck Road.
If you could move a little closer to the microphone, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Jenny Bizarro, 2811 Zuck Road.
Thank you. If you could just give a brief description of what it is you're trying to do?
Just looking to get a dimensional variance on my deck, about a foot. I'd like to enclose the deck, make it an unconditional mudroom, somewhere to go to myself when I got my dog out in the yard instead of standing on the deck getting drenched and everything.
Excuse me one moment. Excuse me. If you're going to speak, I need you to step outside. I'm having trouble hearing. Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Just to enclose it and have a, like, I can let my dog in here, let her dry and stuff, because right now we just gotta go directly into the house and the kitchen and stuff. I don't have a back door or anything, so.
It appears as though the area you're trying to enclose for the addition is not a problem with the setback, Matt? Is that correct?
No.
Well, the current deck infringes 1 foot into the side yard setback, and this was, I'm assuming, was constructed at the time when no permits were required for decks.
Right, but the mudroom part that she's showing as addition, that appears to be an existing, it was called
Oh, that,
an enclosed frame porch.
yeah, I'm looking to open that up, come onto the deck, have it open onto the deck, and actually make that a little bit bigger.
So are you looking
And
to
then-
enclose the deck or just put a roof on it?
I would like to enclose it if possible.
Okay,
If, I mean, I could put a roof on it. I haven't really got all my estimates and everything to see what it's gonna cost to do what I would like to do.
So instead of meeting the 7-foot setback, she's encroaching, she's only meeting it by 6 feet.
Yeah, the current deck
Right.
is 6 foot off the property line, according
Okay.
to the plot plan.
Okay.
but it's over top of an existing deck that's already in place.
Right, that deck was there when I moved in, so.
Okay. Have you talked to any of your neighbors, any
I,
opposition you're aware of?
I ran into a couple of them. One of the gentlemen lives at Lowe's, but he's on Evanston, and he's like, why would they even have people go to that? I'm like, because he knew the deck was already there,
Okay,
but I haven't had any issues with any of the neighbors or anything.
sure.
No, I mean, when I look at the plot plan of the other houses, I mean, I can see that, it looks like, like, I don't know what is, I can't read, 2825. I mean, I'm wondering, a lot of these houses seem like they have a side deck or side attached structure. Just wondering if they met those side setbacks as well. I don't know, Matt. It's visually, I'm looking at it, not with any, they seem like they have a lot of attached or additions with the houses. If you look at this one here.
Okay,
Well, like if you look at the house next to me,
yeah.
2817,
Yeah,
which is Vicki Donahue's house, that extra piece was built on, she's actually got, like they built a big room almost the length of their house on the south side of their house. I don't know if that meets a distance or not, but she doesn't have a deck there.
She's got an enclosed area similar to what you're.
Yeah,
proposing.
which
Yeah.
you walk right from her kitchen right into there, so.
Okay.
And you're looking to enclose the entirety of the deck, is that right?
Correct.
What did you say about a roof? That you're not,
Depending on what it's gonna cost, I definitely want the existing entranceway, I'm gonna rip that down, make that a little bit bigger, and then have it opened up onto the deck instead of coming onto the driveway, then onto the deck. I would like to just be able to go right onto the deck from there. Like I said, I'm in the process of getting estimates and stuff, and I would like to enclose it, but if I had to, I would just do a roof. It's just, I gotta get out of the weather, somewhere for my dog to dry and stuff, so.
so it may not be walls, it might be a roof. Is that what you?
a roof, and then I was looking at doing like, maybe some, like, glass, like, I don't really wanna call it a sunroom, but it would be like that, just, like, I'd be able to see the backyard.
But in total, it would have a roof and
Yes,
sides?
yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this? Township? No. Okay. Thanks, we're gonna take a recess and be back shortly. All right, let the record show that we reconvened at 7:40 on appeal number 22-6. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with a residential-only stipulation.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Appeal number 22-7. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the dimensional variance.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? So moved. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. Good night.